If it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Hey, what is up guys, it's Braden here, and today we are talking about Candlestick Park, which was a stadium located in San Francisco, California. This is the 5th episode of my Dead Stadium series. In the 1950s, the New York Giants baseball team was getting ready to move across the country. You see, the city of San Francisco had promised to build them a stadium, and in return, the Giants had promised to move there. Historian Ted Atlas told CBS News that the city considered several different sites. They even looked at the land where the Giants' current stadium, Oracle Park, is now, which is known as the South of Market District, or SoMa District for short. The city planners settled on Candlestick Point and bought the land and began building, breaking ground on August 12, 1958. It was officially named Candlestick Park after a Name the Park contest on March 3, 1959. Candlestick Park was the first stadium to use prefabricated construction, which means they assembled the parts of the structure off-site and then transported it to the site and erected it there. Very little concrete was poured on-site. Candlestick Park was officially opened on April 12, 1960, with the Giants taking on the St. Louis Cardinals, a game they won 3-1. Richard Nixon, who was vice president at the time, threw out the first pitch. The Raiders, playing their first ever season as a team in 1960, played their final 3 home games of the 1960 season at Candlestick Park, and all home games of the 1961 season there. The architect they hired, John Bowles, designed the park in a horseshoe shape with an open outfield, but soon it was discovered that the winds coming off the San Francisco Bay created a very chilly atmosphere for fans late in the season. Heated floors were installed to help with this issue, however, this did not work very well. It was so cold at certain points in the season that San Francisco attorney Melvin Belli demanded that he be refunded the money he spent on season tickets. The Giants refused, and so, like any good attorney would, Belli took them to court. He ended up winning the lawsuit and was awarded $1,500, which is the equivalent of about $15,000 today. Only 77 total home runs were hit at Candlestick Park in the first season in 1960, and that's including the Giants and every visitor that played there too. A lot of this had to do with the fact that batters were going directly against the winds coming off the San Francisco Bay. The Giants decided to move in the outfield fence as a result of this. The stadium was enclosed following the 1970 season. The enclosure of the horseshoe shape did in fact cut down on the wind significantly and improve the problem with the cold air, but it also created an issue where the stadium acted as a funnel, causing wind to swirl around. It also blocked the view of the bay that many fans enjoyed. 1970 was also the first year that the stadium had AstroTurf as its playing surface. Prior to that, it had natural grass, that being bluegrass. This was done because the 49ers had reached an agreement to make Candlestick Park their new home, choosing to move out of their old home, Kezar Stadium. The Niners began playing at Candlestick starting in 1971. 2 MLB All-Star games were played at the stadium, one in 1961 and the other in 1984. The Giants played 6 postseason series at Candlestick, with the venue hosting the NLDS in 1997, the NLCS in 1971, 1987, and 1989, and the World Series was played there 2 years after its opening in 1962 and again in 1989. The 49ers hosted 8 NFC Championship games at Candlestick starting in 1982, and in that game, tight end Dwight Clark caught a game-winning touchdown pass from Joe Montana in what is still considered to this day to be one of the most famous moments in NFL history, being known as the catch by football fans. Candlestick was used for more than just sports though, hosting the Beatles in the 1960s and hosting Catholic Mass in 1987, with Pope John Paul II holding the event in front of 70,000 people. And for fans of the channel, you will pick up on the fact that, weirdly enough, this is the second time Pope John Paul II has appeared in one of my Dead Stadiums videos. Comment if you know the other one. 2 years later, the Loma Prieta earthquake rocked the area, which happened at the worst possible time, just minutes before Game 3 of the 1989 World Series between the Giants and the Oakland Athletics. No one at the game that day was injured, but minor damage to the stadium was inflicted as a result of the quake. It was later revealed that the local stadium authority had demanded that Candlestick Park fix some safety issues, and luckily it was done before the 1989 season, which prevented what could have been an entire stadium collapse, which could have claimed tens of thousands of lives, and probably would have been one of the greatest tragedies in American history in terms of the number of lives lost at one time. Game 3 was delayed for 10 days following the Loma Prieta earthquake in order for more safety checks to be done. The NFL awarded Super Bowl 33 to Candlestick Park on November 2nd, 1994, with the game being scheduled to take place on January 31st, 1999. However, the renovations that the NFL required the city to make were not completed by the deadline imposed, so Super Bowl 33 was instead given to Miami, and Super Bowl 37 in 2002 was promised to San Francisco as long as a new stadium was built, which was approved by voters in 1997. However, the 49ers owner, Eddie DeBartolo Jr., was arrested in a corruption scandal when he was caught giving money illegally to the governor of Louisiana to fund a casino riverboat, which might be one of the wackiest reasons to get arrested that I have ever heard. But regardless, DeBartolo was forced to sell the 49ers in the midst of all this, and due to that, plans for the new stadium were scrapped. The 1990s made city officials realize that Candlestick was aging. Like I mentioned in my Kingdom video, dual-purpose stadiums were beginning to be phased out in the 90s, and the Giants grew tired of having to share a venue with the 49ers and began construction on a new stadium in 1997, with it being completed in 2000. The venue was originally known as Pacific Bell Park, but today is known as Oracle Park. The Giants began playing there starting with the 2000 season. The final Giants game at Candlestick Park occurred on September 30th, 1999, with the Giants losing 9-4 to their hated rival Dodgers, with whom they had a history going back to both of their days in New York. Candlestick Park was the last remaining NFL stadium that began as a baseball-only stadium. And this was very evident when the 49ers played, as it had a very long and irregular shape, and some seats in the right corner were so badly obstructed that they couldn't even be used, causing them to be empty when the 49ers played. It became increasingly obvious that renovation was not feasible, and every year that passed was another year that the place became more and more outdated, as the gap between the amenities of modern stadiums and the ancient Candlestick grew more and more. The 49ers had been waiting patiently for a new venue, or at the very least, renovations to be done to Candlestick. They had been waiting since the early 90s when the failed plan to host a Super Bowl happened, and their patience finally wore out, just like the Giants had years prior. Negotiations began in 2008 between the city of Santa Clara and the 49ers to construct a new stadium for the team. It officially went before voters on June 8, 2010. City council members and voters alike were mostly in favor of the plan, and it passed with a 58% vote, meaning Candlestick was likely on its way to demolition. By most accounts, Candlestick was becoming more trouble than what it was worth. Failure to provide renovations in a timely manner, and failure to even attempt to adapt to the current world, was causing the venue to dig its own grave. The fact of the matter was, the 49ers and Giants both realized that building a new stadium would be much more valuable than trying to save the aging Candlestick. It became more apparent over time that it wasn't moving economic progress forward any longer, and as a matter of fact, it was doing the opposite in many ways, becoming more of a burden to the city. On September 3rd, 2011, the only college football game ever played at Candlestick happened when Cal faced Fresno State. The result was a 36-21 victory for Cal. A big reason why Candlestick was abandoned by the Giants and Niners, besides its aging structure, was the fact that getting around the place was a pain in the ass for many fans. Concourses were super narrow, which caused problems. Not only that, but the early and mid-2000s were terrible for the Niners, and they had little success. The venue was outdated by this point, and it was considered drab and ordinary by fans, media, and players alike. On December 19, 2011, Candlestick Park experienced a power outage prior to a Monday Night Football game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. An aerial shot showed a transformer sparking, then the whole place going dark. After 17 minutes of fans sitting in darkness, the lights came back on, but they went out again in the second quarter, this time for a half hour. Construction began on the 49ers' new home, Levi Stadium, on April 19, 2012, and it opened in 2014. The 49ers played their final game at Candlestick on December 23, 2013, which was a 34-24 victory over the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football, which was the 36th time the stadium had hosted Monday Night Football, which is the most of any other stadium. On August 14, 2014, Candlestick Park hosted its final event, a Paul McCartney concert. Candlestick Park had no permanent tenants, and preparations were made to finally demolish the old thing. Demolition began in November of 2014 and was completed in September of 2015. 5,000 seats were taken and installed at Kezar Stadium by the year 2016. I mean, we might as well be honest here. The rigid refusal to upgrade Candlestick and the stubbornness to try and stay in the past is what did it in. Renovation plans were never followed through with, and obviously when your tenants are two professional sports franchises, they're going to expect the best. The Giants lost their patience faster than the 49ers, but realistically, they both wanted out by the 1990s. The relationship between Candlestick and the 49ers and Giants is like that one couple who fights all the time, but takes years to finally divorce. Now, I personally think this place was pretty cool and definitely a piece of sports history, but it's better off in the grave if you ask me. It's the 21st century after all. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you hated it, leave a dislike. Other than that, peace out.